You have fire code violations at your club.
Listen.
Hey, don't touch the camera.
Leave me alone, all right? Leave me the alone.
Mike, do me a favor and go away, all right?
We need to ask you about what happened that time that you had that sex on duty.
Hi, Mr. Judah.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Well, I've got a meeting in just a few minutes,
Yep.
so you'll have to ask the question later.
I'll ask you on the way to the chambers.
No,
Can I ask you about your trip to Fenway?
you can look into it.
I already did.
As we had reported on Saturday, McHugh has been lashing out at the Department of Transportation and even the governor himself because he feels that they are conspiring against him to lay the blame on him. So it'll be interesting to see if he ever does go public on his side of the story.
Earlier, we were getting pounded with rain. Who knows what's going to happen 5 minutes from now? It's very unpredictable. Mr. Banks, hey. No, can I ask you a quick question?
No.
The fate of the Crosstown Expressway Authority lies right here in this report.
You're asking me a damn thing, okay?
Actually, I am going to ask you a couple of questions about the helicopter. LASIK surgery is becoming more and more popular. That means the business itself is becoming more competitive, so the consumers have to watch out. The ads for LASIK are everywhere. You could say it's surgery for sale, but as you're about to see, picking the place with the best price could turn out to be the worst thing you do. The ad in the paper is a real eye-opener. LASIK surgery for $299 an eye at the LASIK Vision Institute in Tampa. And the initial consultation is free. Looks like quite a deal. But our investigation reveals it might not be so easy to get that cut rate offer. So you say that you do surgeries for $299 per eye? The manager at this LVI on Fowler Avenue wouldn't tell us how many patients actually get LASIK for $299 an eye. So we decided to try and find out for ourselves. We sent a member of our team inside LVI with a hidden camera. Jason Meyer, a patient counselor with no medical background, explains the cost of the surgery, offering 3 different package deals. But when our patient asked if he could get the advertised deal for $299,
he said my eyes were very much out of the range of that $299, yes.
Even before his eyes are thoroughly examined by a medical professional, Meyer tells our patient he doesn't qualify for the special rate. Instead, Meyer offers LASIK surgery for $1,799 per eye, a total of nearly $3,600. So to be sure it's the right choice, our patient asked to meet with the surgeon before he signs any papers.
We asked to meet the doctor, and both couldn't because they were in surgery.
Sounds like a reasonable explanation, but then our patient is told he has to put down a $100 deposit before meeting the surgeon. When our patient refuses, the counselor walks out.
He actually showed a little bit of anger.
A couple of weeks later, we tried to speak with Jason Meyer ourselves. Do you mind if we come in here and wait for Jason?
I do mind if you come in here. Yeah, you have to wait.
Do you ever do surgeries for $299 per eye?
Yes, we do, but I can't talk to you. Yeah.
We spoke with 6 LVI patients who had surgery on the same day. None got the advertised special. Did anybody see an ad in the paper? Or?
That's all I saw.
The president of LVI, Marco Musa, claims the company still has the best deal in town. We caught up with Musa at LVI's corporate headquarters in Palm Beach County.
I challenge you to put out there the truth of the matter, and that the fact of the matter is that we provide the very best surgeons out there, the most experienced surgeons, at the overall average price to be the lowest in the nation. I challenge you to do that.
I challenge you to show me how many people you have done a surgery for $299 per eye.
And I will promise you that I will do that. I hope you print that, as long as I have your promise that you will print what I just said.
Absolutely. Well, you saw it. We aired his statement, but Marco Musa didn't keep his promise. In fact, we never got a complete answer from LVI. Their attorney later told us that they just don't keep track of how many patients get surgery for $299 an eye. All 6 of the LVI patients we interviewed spent thousands. They all had the procedure done the same day, and they all got terrible eye infections.
It burned, it hurt. You couldn't open my eyes.
It's incredible amounts of pain.
Oh, I went through hell. Ron Link runs a website which serves as the largest advocacy group in the country for patients who have been harmed by LASIK. It's based right here in Tampa. A botched surgery in Ohio cost Ron his career as a firefighter. Now he's fighting for higher standards.
And I've dialogued with thousands of people who wish they had never, ever, laid under that laser.
LASIK surgery can be very successful if the patient is screened properly by a licensed medical doctor.
How common is infection after surgery?
It's incredibly rare. Out of 20,000 cases, I've never had an infection.
Dr. Stephen Updegraff of St. Petersburg meets with each of his patients before surgery. He examined the same patient we sent into LVI and determined his surgery should cost $2,250 per eye. That's $450 more than LVI quoted. But patients harmed by LASIK now realize you can't put a price tag on something as precious as your vision.
I can't go to the eye store and buy another pair of eyes.
Earlier this year, the Federal Trade Commission filed a lawsuit against LVI for making false claims. The Department of Health warns patients to meet with the surgeon before the actual surgery. And as for the infections suffered by the patients in our story, LVI says it believes an airborne virus is to blame.
So imagine our surprise when we found commissioners and even staff members have a private plane that they can use to jet around the state anytime they want. And they don't have to pay a dime, but you do. Tonight, Fox 4 investigates what some are calling the county's secret jet. 4 in the Corner investigator Mike Mason joins us live to explain.
Yeah, we found Lee County taxpayers are paying for flights even if the pilot is the only one on board. And you may be surprised to hear what officials told us when we confronted them about it.
As County Commissioner, please take a look at my new private plane.
When newly elected Commissioner Larry Kiker heard Lee County officials owned a private plane and were using it to jet around the state, he was concerned.
I knew nothing of the plane. I was talking to someone and they said, "Did you know?" And I'm like, "You got to be kidding me."
So he had to see it for himself.
Where do we spend money?
A couple of months ago, while using his iPad, he shot this video of the twin-engine Piper Navajo at Page Field. He now has serious questions about how that plane is being used.
I saw that son of a gun and I said, "This is not right. It doesn't look right, doesn't smell right."
It's a personal toy for the county.
Rob Weber is also concerned. He's a pilot himself and stays connected with local politics. He wants to know why county officials are allowed to use a plane to fly to places within driving distance.
Why we are spending this kind of money to fly these people, it's just ridiculous.
Fox 4 requested information about the plane and found it's owned by the Lee County Port Authority, acquired 20 years ago in a drug forfeiture. In the past 2 years, officials with the Port Authority have taken 36 flights, and Lee County commissioners have used it 20 times. The cost of operating this small plane? More than $85,000 in fiscal year 2010 and 11, and $76,000 in 2011 and 12. But when we began crunching the numbers, things didn't seem to add up. The Port Authority estimates the hourly cost of flying the plane is about $1,000 per hour. That includes fuel and all costs associated with the aircraft. For example, according to the Port Authority, they spent about $7,000 to fly 4 people to Tallahassee last year. In their annual report, they claim to have saved money because that trip would have cost more than $24,000 to book on a commercial airline, according to a software program they use to compare expenses. So we went to the Port Authority for answers.
I just don't understand how you could say that it could be $24,000 when you have a charter company here that will do it for $2,800.
You're arguing about software that we don't provide. We don't have the software. We didn't make the software.
Spokesperson Vicki Moreland says the software factors expenses such as salaries of staff members for the time they're out of the office, hotel fees and meals. But could using a private plane really save a reported $150,000 last year?
As a businessman, I'm going to question, where's your $150,000 savings?
This airplane and the way they're trying to justify it is just ridiculous.
But we found something that may be even more disturbing.
When Commissioner Frank Mann needed to fly to Tallahassee and spend the night, the pilot flew back here to Fort Myers and picked them up the next day.
Mann tells us in 2011, on 2 occasions, pilot James Cothard told him he needed to fly back to Fort Myers to take care of his exotic cats. So each extra trip doubled the 3-hour flight time, making it 6.4 hours. And at $1,000 per flight hour, that's more than $6,000 to fly a commissioner to Tallahassee.
The chief pilot wasn't going to stay over there in Tallahassee because he had to take care of his cats. That's why he said he had to go back.
The airplane always is returned back. I don't know what anyone told Mr. Commissioner Mann. I did ask Mr. Cothard if he said anything about it. He said he does not recall that conversation.
I knew that he had cats that he took care of when he got home.
But the Port Authority contends it's standard procedure to return the plane to Fort Myers each night. So every time a county official or staff member needs to spend the night somewhere, the pilot flies solo back to Page Field and then goes back to pick them up the next day.
Is that a waste?
That seems insane. It absolutely sounds insane.
when you're taking double trips, basically an additional $3,000 to let the pilot come back instead of spending the night. I mean, it's big cost difference. You know, hotel's going to cost you $100 and something bucks a night, not $3,000.
I find it a little bit difficult to believe that it would be more expensive to put the pilot up overnight.
When the Tallahassee legislature is in session, hotel rooms are not $49, or if you're traveling during peak times in Florida, you can have hotel rooms that exceed several $100s.
Moreland also contends the aircraft doesn't cost taxpayers a dime, and the county is not billed for its services.
And we don't get any of our revenues from the property tax dollars. We're completely funded by money that comes in from and derived from our partners here at the airport.
But Fox 4 found that's not exactly true.
Taxpayers do have to pay for the use of the plane while county commissioners are flying it.
So there are tax dollars involved.
Clearly.
In fact, each time a county official flies on the plane, the cost of fuel and pilot time is billed back to the county. In 2010 and 11, the county paid out more than $10,000. And in 2011 and 12, the county was billed over $9,000, and those are your tax dollars.
For them to say that it's not costing the taxpayers money, it's just some more of their fuzzy math.
And Weber says even though the rest of the flights are paid by the Port Authority, it is still passed on to the public.
If they're saying it comes from airline fees and stuff like that, every time you purchase a ticket, you're paying for those fees.
And that's one reason Mann wants to sell the plane, something Commissioner Larry Kiker now supports.
For $300,000, we can probably sell this plane. Just for a general service that's offered to staff as well as elected officials, then I think that that might be a point of contention with a lot of people.
And Larry Kiker says as soon as he takes office, he'll support a motion to sell the plane. The board that oversees the Port Authority is comprised of Lee County commissioners.
First, the problems you haven't heard about on the troubled Crosstown Expressway. Good evening, I'm Wendy Ryan.
And I'm Brendan McLaughlin. Thanks for joining us. If you thought the problems on the Crosstown Expressway were already huge, just wait until you see what our investigators have uncovered this time. Sinking piers are just the beginning. It gets much worse. Investigator Mike Mason broke this story and exposed the mistakes on the project. And Mike, it seems the more you dig, the more you find out.
Yeah, and Brendan, this is probably the most serious investigation we've done yet on the Crosstown Expressway. We've talked a lot about piers and faulty foundations, but tonight we're investigating the elevated expressway portion of the Crosstown. We found parts of the bridge built with bad concrete, official documents altered, some missing altogether, and now one whistleblower says he was told to cover up mistakes. This man, who we'll call John, was hired by construction firm PCL to work on the section of bridge that crosses over I-75 in Brandon. It's an area that was considered free of problems until now. John was in charge of building concrete supports in the very center of each span. That mid-span segment holds the bridge together and keeps the middle from collapsing. John became concerned after noticing holes forming throughout those critical mid-span segments. What's the danger of having holes in the concrete?
The danger is eventually the concrete is going to crack from all the pressure.
John says the segment was riddled with small holes, creating a honeycomb effect like this one in the concrete. The holes were only visible from inside the bridge's tunnel, but inspectors would eventually find them. John says his PCL supervisor ordered him to cover the holes up with grout.
Go into the tunnel, mix it up, and cover up the honeycombs.
Before
they cover it up before the inspectors got there, which will be at dawn.
What did you think when they told you to patch up the holes so the inspector couldn't see them?
Heads will roll. Somebody's going to have to pay for this.
John says he refused to do the cover-up job. A co-worker did it instead. This quick fix saved PCL time and money. Why?
So they wouldn't have to tear it apart and do it right.
Is that safe?
No, it's not safe. It's totally unsafe.
Last August, we told PCL's Vice President, Jerry Harder, about John's accusations.
Well, I can tell you that if anything like that happened with our forces and we were aware of it, we would dismiss employees like that, because that's certainly, if that's the case, that's not something we would tolerate.
John says much of the cement used for construction had been setting in trucks for so long, it began to form holes and crack.
If they have to send the truck back, that's a loss. And they're trying to cover any losses that may incur on that project.
Action News obtained records showing concrete used in the area above I-75 sat in a truck for 3 long hours before being poured. Experts tell us concrete must be poured within 90 minutes. Forensic engineer Bill Bracken has serious concerns.
It would certainly reduce the durability. Depending upon the size of the hole, it could cause problems to the segment, given that it's under a tremendous amount of compression.
After reviewing thousands of documents, we found these drawings showing excessive cracking along several piers. Last April, an independent quality control manager reviewed PCL's concrete reports. He discovered PCL had reported that piers were up to specs, when in fact, they were actually failures.
They're covering up shoddy work.
Another inspector ordered a PCL superintendent to stop pouring bad concrete. But according to this report, the superintendent never discontinued the discharge of the concrete, even after he had been informed that the material did not meet requirements. That superintendent was fired, but Bracken still has concerns.
You know, the fact that you have superintendents out there doing whatever they want, irrespective of what the inspector's telling them, makes you wonder what else happened.
Bridge designer Fig Engineering is responsible for approving all changes and repairs on the project. Fig employee Michelle Roddenberry approved many of those repair directives, but our investigation reveals Roddenberry was not a licensed professional engineer.
Only a licensed engineer should issue a directive.
And she's been issuing a lot.
That needs to be looked at.
According to Florida law, a person may not practice engineering unless the person is licensed. Roddenberry has been signing engineer reports since 2002, even though she did not earn an engineering license until 2004. While reviewing Roddenberry's work, we discovered about a dozen repair directives missing, replaced instead with a sheet of paper saying the document does not exist. But we know at least 2 of those repair directives did exist at one time. After all, they were discussed during meetings.
It's also of a tremendous concern that you've shown me correspondence indicating that this did exist, and then to request the records, to review the records, and find out that someone has inserted a slip of paper that says does not exist. What was it?
Are they destroying documents?
I don't know if it's destroyed. They sure didn't want you to see it.
And it gets worse. There's evidence that someone tampered with official documents. This report shows what type of concrete was used to build the bridge over I-75. Here's the original, and here's what the Expressway Authority gave us. Someone has altered the information. We presented our findings to the new leadership at the Expressway Authority, and they've promised to do a full investigation. But John says it won't matter to him unless the bridge is entirely rebuilt from the ground up. Are you going to drive your car on that expressway?
No, I'll take a different route.
Expressway officials promised to investigate these new allegations. We tried to get a statement from the bridge designer, Fig Engineering, but they did not return our calls. We should also point out that we told local DOT officials about these concerns several months ago, but they did not want to get involved at that time.
State officials are dropping the ball when it comes to keeping track of these potentially deadly predators.
Yeah, when someone decides to raise exotic cats in Florida, FWC officials are in charge of making sure the public is safe. After all, these animals can easily kill a person. Most pet owners have a cat or a dog, but others prefer something a little more exotic. Here in Southwest Florida, a growing number of people are getting licenses to own Class 1 wildlife, such as lions and tigers and bears. Oh my, you may be living next to one of these ferocious felines and not even know it. And just because they're kept in cages, it doesn't mean they're not dangerous.
A lot of times they'll go for your throat.
So if a cat was to get loose, what would you do about it?
We actually couldn't do anything about it. We have no equipment and we're not trained to capture an animal of that size.
So I wonder who would respond.
That I don't know.
We do know owners of exotic animals are regulated by Florida's Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, or FWC.
It's all about safety, and you can't be safe enough sometimes.
Lori Carone runs Octagon Wildlife Sanctuary in Punta Gorda. It's basically a retirement home for all kinds of unwanted and abused animals. Octagon got sneakers here in 2006. She was confiscated from a Port Charlotte family who was raising these Bengal tigers in their backyard illegally. We're told she can be highly aggressive and her moods are unpredictable.
Their moods change like that.
Carone knows how dangerous these cats can be if they were to get out.
That's why she's required to have liability insurance and must comply with strict state and federal laws.
We could get closed down if somebody got hurt. They're beautiful. You can have a certain amount of connection with them, but always look at it as this animal's thinking of you as you're going to be their dinner someday. But it's done safely.
Keeping track of these killer cats is serious business, but a Fox 4 investigation found the FWC has made some mistakes. Last November, we found this tiger and a leopard living in a residential North Fort Myers neighborhood. Problem is, at that time, the owner, Frank Levy, didn't have a license to own these exotic cats.
No, you have it all wrong.
In this letter we obtained last October, FWC stated Levy was applying for a license, but hasn't been issued one since 2008. When we contacted FWC, they told us Levy had been filing the required paperwork to keep these cats, but their office failed to input that information into their database.
There was some administrative snafu on our part. We made a mistake with regards to keeping track of administratively the license.
FWC spokesman George Pino says Levy's license wasn't issued due to a clerical error, something other exotic cat owners don't understand.
If I told you your neighbor has these animals and doesn't have a license,
that's too hard to believe.
Here's your mommy's baby.
Linda Seal owns 2 licensed cougars.
Your cage has got to be inspected and meet proper standards for Florida Fish and Wildlife.
So when I tell you somebody doesn't have a license,
they wouldn't have one of these animals.
We asked Levy about his 2 exotic cats.
I hope you're not on, because I'm not going to even be on camera.
Off camera, Levy showed us his current license issued on December 13th, 2012, more than a month after we began our investigation. FWC confirmed this was the first time Levy has been issued a license since it expired in May of 2008. Since Levy didn't hold a license for 4.5 years, we wanted to know if he was flying under the radar during that time. Well, not exactly. We found local FWC inspector Larry Gregory continued conducting inspections. But after digging deeper, we found at one point Levy also had no liability insurance, which is required by Florida law in case someone is hurt by these cats.
the guy did not have liability insurance for more than a year.
I would classify that as partly a clerical issue. The facility itself was safe.
FWC's records show Levy's insurance bond expired on August 13th, 2011. 2 weeks later, Officer Gregory inspected Levy's facility and even noted he had no license. Gregory said he would reinspect within 30 days, but he never did. The next month, Levy applied for a license, but in December, FWC denied his application because he still had no insurance. Levy eventually got the insurance in October of 2012.
For more than a year, he did not have liability insurance. You guys knew he did not have liability insurance. So what was done about it?
Clerically, obviously, we dropped the ball, and I'm here not to defend that point.
With all these problems, we wanted to find out how many other people own exotic animals without a license. We looked up each facility issued a Class 1 license in Lee, Charlotte, and Collier counties. There are 26 of them. According to FWC's website, 23 have expired licenses, including Linda Seal.
I am licensed for Class 1 anyhow.
Seal showed us her license, which means the information on the website is incorrect. We asked FWC for an updated list of current licenses, but that was 3 months ago, and they have yet to provide that information.
Because of our investigation, what are you guys going to do?
We're going to find out why this situation occurred, and we're going to make any changes that we need to make in order for this not to happen again.
In the meantime, if you happen to live near someone who's keeping killer cats, you may want to keep an eye on them for yourself.
They can't live in a neighborhood, in a home. No, they're not pets. They're not cuddly.
There's a lot of them in Lee County.
That's kind of scary.
And FWC just sent us an updated list of licenses, but they haven't posted it yet to their website. Officials say they're understaffed and under-budgeted, but they do promise to investigate this situation to see how these clerical errors happened and whether inspectors did anything wrong. We'll, of course, let you know what they find out.
A Bay Area father talks about the time he spent in jail for a crime he did not commit. Good evening, I'm Brendan McLaughlin.
And I'm Marty Tucker. The Action News investigators uncovered the story of shocking mistakes made by the former Pinellas Pasco County medical examiner, Joan Wood.
Last night we told you about Wood, who was forced to retire 2 years ago after prosecutors charged her with mishandling a sensational murder case involving the Church of Scientology. That case made national news after Wood reversed her decision on the death of Lisa McPherson, who died in the church's care. Now, Action News investigator Mike Mason has uncovered even more, maybe more serious mistakes.
Right, this is a horrible story and it could happen to any parent. We already told you the story of David Long. Well, while investigating his case, another innocent man, John Peel, was also released from jail. He had been locked up for 4.5 years. Unimaginable mistakes by Dr. Joan Wood led a jury to convict him of killing his own child. So how could Wood make such a big mistake? Well, we did a little digging to find out who watches over the state's medical examiners. When John Peel goes to work each morning, he's doing more than renovating a home. He's rebuilding his life. At the young age of 18, he was sent to jail for murdering his baby boy. But he didn't do it.
He was my son. I loved him more than anything in this world.
John would often fall asleep while holding John Jr. One day he woke up to find his baby dead on the floor.
It's hard. You know, nothing's going to bring him back. You know, I wish I could.
At the time, the medical examiner for Pinellas and Pasco counties was Joan Wood. She determined the baby was murdered, a victim of shaken baby syndrome. John was arrested and convicted of first-degree murder. But after spending 4.5 long years in jail, the new medical examiner discovered Wood made a big mistake.
In my opinion, his baby was not murdered, certainly wasn't shaken to death.
John Thogmartin is the new medical examiner for Pinellas and Pasco County. He and 4 other pathologists reviewed John Jr.'s autopsy report and found major discrepancies. For example, in Joan Wood's microscopic examination, she writes, there is no retinal hemorrhage or no bleeding in the eyes. But in another part of the report, she contradicts that, writing she did find gross retinal hemorrhage.
Clearly from reading the testimony of the doctors involved, the opinions regarding whether this was shaken baby or abusive head trauma was based upon the fact that there was retinal hemorrhage when there was not.
We confronted Joan Wood at her Clearwater home.
John Peel Jr. was the baby's name. It was back in 1998.
I don't know anything about that.
When we told Wood more about the case, she refused to comment.
That's my attorney's advice. And I really, I get panicky when I get around cameras, and so I'm really better off just not talking.
In the past, our cameras never seemed to bother Wood, who represented herself as an expert on shaken baby syndrome.
It's like this.
Wood was a chief medical examiner for 18 years and helped prosecute at least 6 cases of shaken baby in the past 10 years. In recent months, prosecutors found 2 of those fathers were wrongly accused. Both John Peel and David Long were then released from jail. So why didn't anyone question Joan Wood's findings? Shockingly, Action News found she was the chairperson of Florida's Medical Examiners Commission. That commission regulates medical examiners. She held that position for 6 years, essentially regulating herself.
Certainly, I think Joan Wood should be exposed for what she was and is.
Which is?
An incompetent physician who should never have held a position for the length of time that she did.
Attorney Norman Cannella represents John Peel.
No, Joan Wood done this to me. I'm sure she done it to other people.
John Thogmartin is double-checking. In the meantime, he can only promise this won't happen again.
I would apologize to John Peel on behalf of my profession.
The Medical Examiners Commission tells us it has never received a complaint against Joan Wood that has risen to the level of an investigation. Wood has gone on to open her own practice as a medical consultant, so she is still practicing medicine. The thing that I love about Fox 4 is if a government official or somebody tells us that they're not going to comment, they're not going to cooperate with us on a story, we are still allowed to do that story. We still pursue that story until we get answers. And if we don't get answers, we tell the public that we're not getting the answers. So we hold the powerful accountable, no matter what.